community of interest for strategy professionals. I'm Randall Rollinson, president of LBL Strategies and co-sponsor of the AI community of practice. I and our other co-sponsors, Transformative, Mark Bills, and the Army Strategists Association welcomes you to today's session. We're very pleased that you all could take the time to attend the 6th of our monthly AI strategy webinars. Our goal all along has been to establish a monthly forum where we learn together about the technical revolution unfolding before us. Of specific interest to our team is to gain a shared understanding of impacts, benefits, and barriers that must be overcome to take advantage of this new reality. Normally, here I'd hand it off to Robin Champ to moderate the panel. Robin had a conflict this morning, so I'm pinch hitting for her. Hopefully, Robin will be able to join us during the session. The presentation will run for about 45 minutes, followed by a 15-minute Q&A. The session is being recorded, but the recording will be turned off before the Q&A session. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable asking questions in a non-attributional environment. Please enter your questions in the chat at any time, and I'll take them on your behalf at the end of the presentation. I'll present them to Ina at the end. Or you can feel free just to raise your hand and during the presentation, and Ina can respond there. Today, I'm very excited to introduce Dr. Ina Beran, who will talk to us about AI adoption, strategic takeaways. Dr. Beran is a strategist and intelligence methodologist working at the intersection of national security and emerging technology, with the benefit of significant international academic and private sector experience. She is a principal at the MITRE Corporation Enterprise Strategy and Transformation Center, where she specializes in technology strategy, technology foresight, and AI adoption for the federal sector. Dr. Beran has held leadership roles in a range of organizations to include EY Private Equity, Thomson Reuters, and Booz Allen Hamilton Strategic Innovation Group. She completed her graduate studies at Harvard University with a focus on international security and cultural anthropology. So with that, please welcome Dr. Ina Beran.
Thank you so much, Randy. It's a great pleasure to be here. So I know that a lot of you are very busy professionally, and there's so much information about AI, and there's also information about AI and strategy. So I will try to make it a very useful session for everybody. So please feel free to post your questions, raise your hand, as Randy said, or post your questions in the comments as I present. And what I decided to do is to kind of compile different ideas and observations from the 5 years of experience that I have developing AI strategy and working on AI adoption with the federal government. I know that in the AI circles, some people, especially technologists, they will joke about having 30 years of AI expertise. That's because they started AI and then the AI winter came in and now they're back on the AI. But very few people can say, I work on AI strategy 30 years ago, right? The first AI strategy that I'm actually aware of came out of NGA, that's National Geospatial AI Strategy in 2019, and that's for the US. So what I try to do today is to talk to you about AI strategy design, AI adoption, and as much as possible, base this on personal experience. Having said that, this is not a MITRE talk, and I'm here more in a personal capacity. If you want to reach out to me with my professional hat on, feel free to do so through LinkedIn. It will have my work information. So are there slides? Are you seeing the slides? I don't see the slides, Randy. Does anyone see the slides? Okay. Here they are. Excellent. So let's go to the first one.
That's the last
The
one.
last one.
I'm
No
no
worries.
Robin. Here
No
we go.
worries. Okay. So the title is Strategic Perspectives from the Frontiers of Change. You know, how do you keep the strategy mindset in the eye of the storm when things are developing really fast? That's what I wanted to kind of focus it on. Next slide. So I'll let you take this in for a second. So this is a really great cartoon. And I bring this up here because it's a great conversation starter about AI. It kind of, I think, summarizes our existential feeling. On the one hand, the scary big guy is coming. He says, I've been sent here from the future to kill you. And by the way, you have your dentist appointment tomorrow. When I look at this, I think like, well, this is about AI strategy, about AI adoption on a daily basis. A lot of us are already using AI. So our personal AI adoption is definitely here. It's definitely happening. And when ChatGPT 4 came out, the personal use of AI and awareness of AI capabilities, at least with LLMs, has really exploded, right? And so now it actually is now easier in mental terms for a lot of people who are using AI on a daily basis in your phone, in your apps, et cetera, to think about larger applications of AI. And I think the technology companies, they understand that. At the same time, there's still a lot of unknown about AI, AI and drug discovery, AI and workforce considerations, the way it's going to affect job, geopolitical balance, ability of various nefarious groups to use AI, emerging capabilities of AI. There's still a lot of unknowns, especially on the cutting edge of AI, and that's the scary part. So it's a kind of part where people like are not sure. They need to explore that when they look at the strategy. So as a strategy professional, when you look at this, it kind of helps to understand the mental space a lot of people are in when they come in to think about AI strategy. It's important to acknowledge that there is both increased familiarity, but also a lot of unfamiliar about AI, especially that's moving so fast. And that's the kind of moment that we're in right now. Next, Randy. So first, I wanted to zoom out and talk about national AI strategies. So I know this audience is very diverse, and there are people here from the private sector, academia, government, even some international organizations. So sometimes when we work with specific organizations, it's important to zoom out and look at the national AI strategies. And there are about 17 national AI strategies right now. Anyone knows which country had the first AI strategy? Any Canadians in the audience? It was Canada. In 2017, Canada was the first country to develop AI strategy. And when you look at the list of countries here, to some of you it may look surprising, right? Why smaller countries who are not really aspiring to be international leaders, global leaders on AI, why do they have AI strategy? Well, actually, one of my assignments professionally was to review national level AI strategies. And what I've learned is it's actually incredibly informative and how versatile these strategies are. So of course you have the usual technology leaders in this space with their very bold and ambitious AI strategies, right? Like the one from the United States and China, right? Then you have countries who are also leaders who are very, very versatile. Like one of my favorite strategies is actually Japanese AI strategy. It talks a lot about using AI to address their aging population concerns and issues. It's talking about AI for smart cities. It has an iconographic that is like really, really cool. So it's one of the more creative strategies I saw that is also very good. Smaller countries like Singapore that are very technically savvy will have we know that they're leaders actually in the strategy space and foresight space. They have very interesting AI strategy, how to be a fast follower, how to position their workforce, how to work with global technology companies. And then countries like Thailand will also have AI strategy. And you would think, well, what kind of AI strategy does Thailand have? Well, they want to position their tourism sector, their healthcare and hospitality, their tourism and hospitality, their healthcare sector, and other service sectors towards AI to make them AI enabled, to create more capabilities, and also have education and workforce that is AI focused. And a lot of countries also want to host AI infrastructure, right? So very informative. And if you do work in the academia or the private sector, it's also good to see, because you can see what these countries are investing into, and your businesses or universities may be reaching for that. Some countries, of course, then have a lot of other strategies around AI. So when I was looking at UK or New Zealand, Australia, I was noticing that they'll have an infrastructure strategy, right? So a lot of agencies would kind of come in and it could be cross-cutting on AI. Or, for instance, national workforce strategy, things like that. And then different agencies, of course, within those countries, too many to mention, will have additional AI strategies. And in the United States, of course, most recently, we had another executive order on AI from President Biden, where he directs every strategy to have a position of Chief AI Officer to collect AI use cases and catalog them and publish for those non-defense, non-intelligence agencies, and to develop a strategy and strategic plans around these agencies' AI on a very short timeline. So we'll be seeing a lot of this coming out, and this is all done so that in the federal government there's an acceleration of AI adoption. Next. So now that I touched on strategies, I want to touch on AI technology and kind of think about as a strategist, like how do we think about technology and capabilities when we design strategy? Some of you have seen this this graphic from Gartner. They do it on a lot of technologies. This one is for AI. But what I'd like to emphasize is that there's so much happening with AI, and a lot of times people think about specific technology. So people will mention LLMs, right? But LLM is a technology that can lead to a lot of different capabilities. Some technology equals one capability, some technology equals multiple capabilities. Also, technology may be mature, but a given capability around it may not be mature because of regulation and other things associated with this technology. So if you're a cutting edge organization, it's very important for you perhaps to understand the whole gamut of things. If you have an R&D department, you want to be looking at technologies on the left. They're still in kind of innovation stage and are up and coming, right? If you're a small organization, or if you're in the part of organization that is looking to deploy capabilities, not just experimentationally, but in the operating environment, then you want to be focused on more mature capabilities. And with all the buzz around AI, sometimes we lose that. We lose that perspective, which is why I'm kind of saying I want to talk about AI like without the buzz, right? Like strategists, we want to have a long-term perspective, right? So part of this perspective is understanding these things are up and coming. This is more mature. So for instance, when you look at the right side of this, what capabilities are more mature? Machine vision, for instance, machine learning, machine vision is a more mature capability, and it has been deployed successfully and with minimal risks in a lot of organizations. So I used to work in private equity research, and I kind of got a giggle when I was reading about a private equity company. The way they went around understanding a specific business using AI/ML is that they used AI to count the number of cars in the parking lot of they were looking at Home Depot, I think, and Lowe's, right? Which one to buy. And they were not sure because there are a lot of comparative numbers. This was just one more category. AI/ML allowed them to capture this non-traditional information, this data, by date, by season, by time of the day, and they were able to really not just estimate the number of customers, but know pretty precisely how many customers that the store had, right? So this is the type of like more established capabilities that we're talking about. So think about your organization, think about your portfolio. Are you using more mature things? Do you want to have a research department, and think how to kind of balance this portfolio with capabilities. Next. This slide I use because sometimes people ask about narrow general AI and superintelligence ASI. I think this is a very sophisticated crowd, so I won't bore you with explanations, but most of the AI implementation that is done right now is considered narrow intelligence, right? So it's AI for specific reason, for a specific type of thing, the task that it does. What's more difficult was general AI, and we are not at ASI yet, is issues around the transparency of data, the traceability, the interpretability of, how did it derive what it derived. Things become more obscure and more difficult. With transparency, I feel like I was struggling to understand the concept of transparency. And I read a lot of examples, but the best example I saw, the best explanation of transparency was like, had to do with an example of a restaurant. So if you come to a restaurant and it has an open kitchen concept, you can look in the back and you can say, oh, this is a dish that I'm eating, but I can see how it was cooked. I'm even seeing who cooked it, what kind of ingredients went into that. So the higher you go into from ANI to AGI and OSSI, the more difficult some of these transparency things are, even though the technology community is working on them. Ideally, you should be able to see your data. You should be able to see where it comes from, what kind of algorithms, processes are being used, and to understand both the traceability of that and the interpretability of the decision that is being made. So next. So when we prepare AI strategy, the whole purpose of AI strategy is toward AI adoption in organizations. So I wanted to provide you with a definition of AI adoption. So I like this definition. It actually comes from McKinsey & Company, and it says that its people in the organization are using AI on a sustained basis, and the organization is realizing value from AI. AI is adopted into the organization's day-to-day processes, operations, and value delivery, where one project, one part of organization, or the entire organization. So if we had to deconstruct a statement, I think you would readily see a lot of important parts in here. Organization is using an AI on a sustained basis. So it's not a one-off, it's some kind of capability or enabling function, and it's realizing the value. So there's a return on investment from AI. It's very important. Sometimes organizations forget to measure that return on investment or even estimate it. Sometimes we're so focused on let's implement AI that we will forget to think like, well, what's the return on investment after I calculate, development or acquisition and test and evaluation and monitoring and the risks and how it has to be updated if there's new data, and I have to again monitor the performance, right? Is there actual benefit to AI implementation? I may have to change my processes, my people might have to work differently. AI is transformational technology. So having that return on investment, thinking upfront is very important. At the same time, should not limit some experimental box where you have experimentation with AI technologies, but think about the return on investment. And I would add to that, right, so unlike other technologies, if you're buying software or something like that, AI, you always have to, in many cases, you still have to monitor that is it giving you the right answers? Is there some kind of data creep for specific applications? So kind of like the tail of expenditures that accompanies AI adoption. There's data storage, compute, right? It can be long. So that's something as strategists we have to take into account. And of course, another important word here is people. People in the organization are adopting AI, right? When we think of people, sometimes it's technical roles, but yes, there will be technologies, but it's going to be actual non-technical workers in the organization often adopting AI. And I'll come back more to the topic of AI literacy education for the workforce. It becomes very important because not only they need to understand the new capabilities, processes, they also need to be able to flag when something is not working, right? And they also need to be following policies. And this is, of course, all depends on the complexity of AI that's being deployed. So next. So another very important topic is organizational use cases. Sometimes it's kind of a little bit of a chicken or an egg. What's first, AI strategy or AI use cases? And I think that use cases, at least initial, I feel like they're very important for the development of AI strategy. Without the use cases that your organization is discussing, thinking about, even if it's like an initial meeting, pre-strategy, like you convey to stakeholders, without all that, the discussion about strategy is very abstract. It's going to be stuck in that kind of abstraction level and will never become real. So you can obviously iterate on the use cases. Oh, here's some ideas so they could build around that. Here's more ideas. And this is what we want to focus on. Now let's talk to the expert and kind of grow it. And as I already mentioned, in the US, all organizations in the federal government are required to have a catalog of use cases. And many organizations that are not defense or intelligence community are actually required to publish them openly on the internet, right? And there's going to be a format that Government Accountability Office will provide for that. But what I wanted to discuss here is, this is more kind of like my methodology, how I think about use cases. Gartner has this chart. It says everyday AI and stretch AI. And I felt like it was not sufficient because I think there's so much going on in the everyday AI. And through the many conversations I had with the organizations I work with, Randy, could you click several times? I've identified 3 buckets into a lot of use cases actually go into. I call it productivity AI, capability AI, and stretch AI. And let me explain why I picked those buckets. Productivity AI is when organizations will say, hey, we have these enterprise level tasks. They're very boring. They're labor intensive and time intensive, and they can be automated, right? I mean, the first thing comes in mind is, we're going to be able to summarize our emails. We'll be able to put emails, into specific formats. To this, I will say, well, okay, we know that Google Workspace and Microsoft, all these companies who supply our software and our enterprise computers, they will be doing that. They will provide that to you, right? So it's going to be there. But in your organization, you'll also end up having things specific to your organization, right? So my daughters are in school, so chances are they need something like, how do you assign kids to different teachers, or tracking the type of training your employee has done at work, or you have a big office, so let's say salespeople, are they traveling? Where do they check in? What countries are they in? What locations are they in, right? Things like that are very time-consuming, labor-intensive. So there's opportunity to use AI to automate that and make your organization more productive, and perhaps even limit the number of these jobs that are extremely routine. I mean, we're talking about workforce considerations, but most people who do this, they're kind of like, oh, this is part of my job I hate, right? Like doing that kind of analysis. So that's the first one. But very usually comes up, which is why I kind of separate it in a separate bucket. The second one is the capability AI. Capability AI is about your organization's core mission. What is it that you do? And there you can start thinking about 2 things. You can either think about how AI is going to augment that to make it better, or you can talk about how it can transform it, revolutionize it, and create completely new business models for you, right? So maybe if you're an organization that does sensing, has a lot of physical infrastructure on the edge. Now you can use AI to process this information from the sensors. Maybe there could be real-time analysis and then certain allocation related to logistics, recommendations, right? And that kind of like enhances your ability to address your core mission. Transformation could be, give you an example, like, I don't know, your travel agency, right? Your established travel agency, but now there's AI, you decide to create a whole different brand where you have AI travel agents, literally AI agents that are also travel agents, and maybe each customer will get two and they're competing for your business, trying to give you like a better, like kind of a gamification mode, a better offer or something like that, right? That would be kind of completely transforming a business with AI. Finally, Stretch AI is not for every organization. I think Stretch AI is about, hey, there's some capability out there that's new, that hasn't been tested maybe yet, that maybe is not yet fully commercialized. Think back to that curve, right? But we think for us, it's going to be really important. So we either have an R&D department where we're going to do this, prototype it, demo it, work with vendors, with partners, with universities to do that kind of Stretch AI. Or so either we do it internally or we acquire it. No, what I was saying is we either develop it internally, or because we can't develop it internally, we partner. We partner with Microsoft, we partner with university, because this is important to us. We want to stretch and lean, but maybe we're not immediately operationalizing this. So that's why I have these 3 buckets. Next. So as a strategist, I think it's also very important to realize that and acknowledge that there are various barriers to AI adoption. So some of these barriers are purely technical. So lack of knowing when AI will work and when it will fail. Data quality, everybody knows, a very important technical issue. Quality and quantity, lack of integration environment, lack of insights into model behavior, technical system production issues, system vulnerability. Haven't fully yet the comments yet, but somebody mentioned cyber. So cybersecurity of AI systems, as well as how well can AI systems work to deliver cybersecurity solutions on monitoring. And thank you for your question. I will read it fully towards the end. So these technical hurdles to adoption, of course, are very important for each individual use case, right? But next. But from the strategist perspective, there are also a lot of organizational barriers to AI adoption. They may include things like not having AI strategy, or there is strategy, but there's not enough resourcing and the roles are not clear how the strategy is going to be implemented. The return on investment that I mentioned before is not clearly defined. Workforce, it does not have necessary skills, has not been trained, or maybe doesn't want to adopt AI. Lag in policies. Very often technology, especially these days, technology is faster than policies. Policies are 1 or 2 years behind. So test evaluation environment, or if you're acquiring something from the vendor, are they guaranteeing testing evaluation? You're still going to be able to do, you'll still need to do some of your own occasionally if it's capability related type of implementation. And already referred to continuous monitoring if there's drift and other issues. In addition, there could be unmet expectations about the lack of trust in outputs, concerns about assurance, and concerns about impacts to jobs. People are used to doing things a certain way. They may be resisting this new technology because it's going to change a lot of processes. And there have been studies around that actually show that. So having that workforce strategy, communication strategy is also very important. Next. So this slide is going to build, and I'm going to kind of focus on it for a while, because here I try to kind of combine the so what and the lessons learned on AI strategy development and design. So I'll talk through it as it builds. So the first thing I already mentioned is that you have to have some kind of ideas about your use cases. They don't have to be 100% complete and clear, but have these conversations and have an annual refresh. And use cases can be very specific to specific things, or you may be able to say, hey, these use cases, they combined into this area or into this capability. So eventually that may become kind of like your LOE, right? So also don't expect to achieve your use cases right away. You will be deciding which use cases to prioritize and which use cases to go for. So for some companies, I've read that for Microsoft and Facebook, they were going for low-hanging fruit use cases initially. And the reason they did it is because it helped to train their workforce. It helped the workforce to embrace AI. And once they were able to show these successes, people were energized and motivated to do that. Some organizations may go for other type of things. And also don't assume that all your use case stuff is going to be internally developed. Of course, you have to look on the outside and see what's out there that you can bring in, reduce your time and potentially also reduce your risk. Okay, next one. So then I wanted to show you what are the elements of AI strategy. So recently I had a project where I ended up reviewing 17 federal level AI strategies to provide insights for the specific organization, asking how to develop their strategy. It's a whole separate kind of more formal presentation that I gave in my my work hat role. But here I just wanted to list some of the things that I see as specific to AI strategy in a lot of these documents. So in the part that's strategic approach, which obviously we see in all strategies, it's important to say like why AI is important for your organization, and also to understand the whole ecosystem of AI strategies that you're working in, right? Is it national? Is it national R&D plan? Is it, Department of Defense? Is it a specific industry or sector? What does a strategy ecosystem look like there, and what you are trying to do with your AI strategy? How it's unique in terms of what your organization is doing. And then after that, you should have a vision. This is, of course, the strategy goes first, but oftentimes it's kind of like a part of the whole process of strategy development of like, this is the current state where our organization is with AI. And when we envision the future state in 2-3 years, so this organization was AI, this is where we want it to be, and this is why, and this is how it relates to the ecosystem, if that's something you want to say. Then at some point, and this is not prioritized, it can go in different orders. So this can be also in the and, the scopes, responsibilities, and roles can come initially or in the and. It's very important to define who's going, what the strategy's scope is, who is going to be responsible for implementation. And this is specifically important for AI strategy. Why? Because a lot of organizations do not yet have a designated AI person. And even if they do, this could be like a new team, they're short-staffed, right? So showing who is the point of contact for implementation for AI, how that person can be interacting with other parts of the organization, whether it's chief data scientist or legal, or maybe like with other agencies, interagency, interorganizationally, is really key. Another element that comes up a lot in AI strategies is data, right? Because AI is data hungry, right? AI does not function without data. So most organizations have a data strategy. So your AI strategy has to be connected with the data strategy. You need to identify what data in the organization will be used for AI. You need to identify how AI governance is going to overlap with your data governance, what's unique about your AI data and your AI governance, and whether your AI data is going to also become a product. So for many organizations, they need to think, are they productizing this data? In some cases, it actually becomes a part of their business. I read somewhere that Redfin, as many of you know, is a company that you can look up a house to see the price, real estate, but they're also offer data products because they have so much information about real estate prices, sales, economic indicators, etc. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's some AI capabilities there as well, about how they process this data. So the data part is key because AI is data hungry. Another element that I would also mention is use cases or capabilities. So if you have the catalog, you don't have to list every use case, or maybe you do in the appendix, right? But what are your capabilities writ large, right? And are they going to be using something that's out there where you want to partner, or you're going to be actually looking to deliver something unique from you, right? And if you deliver this unique capability, is it going to be developed by you in-house, maybe with some technologists from contractors or stuff like that? Or is this something that you're buying, adopting for your business? You can go to the outside vendor and do that. So another aspect, and this is maybe less for the federal aid strategy, but I included it here, is customers and markets. Right? Who is going to use it, and where? Some countries don't have the infrastructure yet to use certain AI capabilities. But even in the federal agencies, customers is very important, right? Whether it's a decision maker or a warfighter or just a citizen of the country, like how are they going to utilize this? If the Internal Revenue Service is planning to build AI chatbot that will interact with taxpayers and will significantly cut on those phone calls that they get, would be able to do it in different languages and using this narrow kind of data that they train it on that's already from the phone calls, right? Like thinking about the customer and the customer experience in this, because it's not only your organization that's adopting AI downstream. Importantly, your customers will also be adopting that AI as well. So then, of course, you have to think about enablers. That could be the innovation culture. That could be the technology infrastructure. Do you have the right technical and kind of like soft systems to help you to orchestrate this AI? If it's all completely outsourced, if you're just using these applications, you don't have to think about cloud, right? Because you're using a Google app and it's running it on the Google Cloud, right? But if you're running your own instance of something, it has to come with infrastructure and then becomes a part of the budget and all the resourcing that you have to invest into, and you need to estimate that correctly as much as possible, right? To have that budget. Safety and risk management, very, very important aspects that also have to be in the strategy. There has to be compliance, increasingly in the US government, there is some definitions and frameworks, so like NIST framework for AI risk management. So at least mention them in the strategy. Typically, there's also a risk management plan that's going to be in my next build up. You will see that. The next one is governance. Very important part of AI because again, AI is kind of like this live application. You don't just put it on the shelf or say, it sits on your computer, use it, right? It's going to start digesting more data. The outputs may creep. There could be performance types of issues. So it's really important to understand governance, not just from the technical perspective. Sometimes people think that governance is assurance of technical systems, but governance is a lot more than that. Governance is also about different organizational processes and oversight for AI applications. And the more AI applications you have, the more kind of oversight you're doing. And for some organizations, it also means that different types of environments, what is the oversight like for your experimental sandbox environment versus your live operational environment? So, and of course, for organizations that are international, then you have to look at like what's an oversight in the EU countries versus the United States versus in other countries. And so when I think of governance, I think of really a multidisciplinary team that has the data person, the workforce person, the risk management, the legal, the ethicist, the strategist. It's going to be very interesting to see how the field of AI governance evolves. And when you look at leading companies like Microsoft, IBM, I know that they're selling governance solutions, right? But it's not, it's still an emerging ecosystem of things. There will be audits. There will be, there's still, I think, a lot of fluidity in how things are. And that's definitely a space to watch. I already mentioned legal and ethical. I want to zoom in also on acquisition, test and evaluation, and monitoring. So a lot of organizations are not enabled to do AI acquisition easily. It kind of has to be streamlined if they want to bring AI application online faster. I already touched on partnerships, that if you really want to be on the cutting edge of AI, you need to work with universities, you need to work with industry leaders and understand what your portfolio of stretch is going to be like. Workforce and culture, also very important, because you'll have those technical and non-technical people doing your AI. And some people talk about how AI literacy has to be just like a training for anyone who comes into an organization that's using AI. And based on that, additional training. And of course, for technical people, they need to be training all the time because AI changes so fast. For the government people, coding those jobs, coding the roles, and having some flexibility, understanding that things may change, that's the tricky part. I'm not an expert on workforce, even though I've done some work on this, but I think it's very important to have a good have people who can plug in different ways technically and continuous training, so you don't necessarily get stuck in specific roles. Like for instance, a developer, a coder, but then the work is so accelerated by AI that we need less of these jobs and more different types of jobs. Implementation guidance has to be a part of this strategy, how you're going about, not the full plan, but just basic discussion of how you're going to implement this. And finally, KPIs. A lot of strategy forget key performance indicators, but because the return on investment is so important, there should be KPIs on the level of the strategy that are also making the strategy more accountable. Next.
We have about 2 minutes left,
2
Ina.
minutes, good. So as I said, we'll be spending a good chunk of time with this slide. So this is the last part. And here I will say, like, once you do the strategy, then what, right? Because we know a strategy is just a start. Well, of course, the organization needs to start implementation. On one project I was on, we did a detailed plan with 36 action items, things like that. Like, by all means, you have to develop your lines of effort or strategies, whichever way you want to implement this. But there's some key documents that you probably will need to have. So you'll need to have your strategy and resourcing document, compliance plan, risk management, roadmap, implementation plan, workforce plan, probably strategic communication plan, partnerships, and last but not least, horizon scanning, because you don't want to be investing in old AI. You want to understand what lies a little bit ahead, right? And then you'll need to do things like organizational design, if like what units you need to establish, your policy design or updates, design of your processes, if your processes with implementation significantly change with job roles, etc., and design and capture metrics. Because organizations that are really optimized for AI, they have a lot of data, they can capture metrics and optimize it and kind of iterate, right? So that's what I wanted to stress with this. And on that MITRE AI maturity model, you can actually Google it online. It's a MITRE product that we've used in the federal space to build up the strategy. And so it's been very interesting, very useful. So next. Concluding observations. Randy, could you display the second part? So my observation is that current state and futuristic type of AI are overlapping now. The things are moving really fast. That adoption of AI happens on all levels, everywhere. It's through the consumers, through our devices, and it's through businesses and it's through government. So it's everywhere. It's happening in all sectors of the economy, but don't forget that nefarious actors are getting empowered too. And that's why there's going to be a lot of difficult things coming up in the society, because they can also use AI to influence election, to produce horrible content on the internet, etc. Compute is a new currency that companies and countries with a lot of compute will be able to do more AI, and there will be challenges to labor markets, wealth distribution, geopolitics, and the balance of power. So I didn't get into sociocultural implications of AI in this presentation, but there's so many of them. We can do like a whole, other talk on this. Frontiers of AI these days include kind of like AI plus, neuro AI, embodied AI, that's robotics, quantum plus AI, quantum plus AI plus cyber, right? I have this little graphic of how AI can read any language. So one of the languages it can read is your brain imaging. So here's a person looking at a giraffe, and AI can actually uses that brain image to translate that into the image of a giraffe. And when I saw this, I was floored. But people just say this is just the beginning of what AI can do. So hence my cartoon up front, it's not just cozy and familiar in your phone. There's still a lot of things, and a lot of these things can be used for good and for weaponization of AI or a surveillance state in authoritarian regimes and things like that. So the challenge that we all have as strategists is mitigating AI harms while rapidly working with new release capabilities in the AI race. This is kind of like the state of the world we're in. All these companies are racing to release AI. You saw how Google was a little behind the Microsoft. 2 days ago, they released AI.io. Now people say, oh, they're really on par, if not further out than Microsoft. You're going to see this race going in. Again, we kind of have to see through the buzz and through the storm to have solid strategy. And that's why I think this CLP is so great. I want to thank you all for your time. I know I'm at the end of my time, and of your time, my time, and I'd love to take your questions. And I hope this was useful for you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ina. Thank you very much. Now, I know you mentioned one question in the chat here. Why don't you go ahead and take that one?
Okay, so the question is,